morning. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started as we're just a minute or two after 10. Hopefully everybody can hear me. You're welcome to use chat to let me know. I'm going to kind of shove everything down and start. So today, the conversation is going to be about kind of basics for users. So just giving people who are new to using SAM or never got a tour of SAM, a little bit of a tour, talk about settings and things like that. So I'm going to share with you some basic SAM terminology that when you're interacting with our support team or talking about SAM, your system, you can have a shared terminology. We'll talk about settings. We'll talk about the difference between forms and documents. We'll talk a little bit about reports and how users interact with them. And then we will also show how to connect. We'll also talk about help and support. So when you need some assistance, how you can get that from us. So let's get started. So as far as SAM terms go, there are 8 that I think are really important to our kind of meta understanding of SAM. So we'll talk about entity and tabs or your record types. We kind of use the entity and records interchangeably. We'll talk about tables and fields. We'll discuss forms versus documents versus checklists, which a lot of those, I think, just in English are interchangeable. And so we'll really kind of narrow down and define those in the system. We'll talk about templates, reports, and then auto actions, just so you have an understanding of what the system can do and how we define them. So let me jump into SAM itself. So entities and record types, the colorful tabs at the top are your main entity types in the system. So these are generally the main types of records. So they're fairly standard settings for families, children, birth parents, foster parents. Organizations and persons are constituents you work with at the agency or organization level, or at the person level being those people who work at those organizations. You may also have donor and volunteer. There are some agencies that have expanded SAM even further and have very specific entity types that are different from just from a standard foster care program. They might have, I've seen direct services, guardianship, refugee camps. It depends on what your organization provides as programs. That being said, underneath each of these entity types, you may find different programs. So you may have under the adoptive family, domestic and international programs. Under foster care, you may have different, or under child, different types of youth programs that your organization provides. So it will not be necessarily set that your system will be identified. These tabs at the top or entity types will identify the different programs, because a program may be underneath that. But that's generally who are you servicing? Is it a family or is it a child? Should have my list of terms on me. The other things, let's just go back to it so that I make sure. Tables and fields. So every database in the world is made up of tables and fields. That's how the table is where you store that information, and a field is the column can be shown on a report, but it's also the space that you use to input information about that record that you're talking about, or that entity type that you're talking about. So like on the family table, you would have first name, parent 1 first name, parent 2 first name, street address, city, age, date of birth. These are all fields that are on that family table. Some important tables to SAM are the main entity types, so family, child, birth parent, and then they will generally have a case table underneath that. You'll also have, and so the case is generally how you service that entity type. So things from inquiry all the way to the case closure date will be on that case level. Those aren't going to be the only tables. There are lots and lots of tables in the database. As basic users, you don't have access to viewing the table hierarchy, but your SAM admin can assist you with seeing the hierarchy if that was something that was needed. But you may interact with, if you're a home study provider or a social worker that's completing a home study, you may work on the home study or with that home study data a lot. Other tool or terms are forms. So forms are going to be every screen that you begin to access. Doesn't really matter what entity type you're looking at, you will be interacting with a form. So there's a lot of different categorizations to forms, but every time you access a record, you'll be taken to a cover page form. It is also categorized as a view form because it's displaying information. Whereas if we go into an add form or an edit form, these are set up as edit forms. When I click over here and it moves, and you'll be able to see the difference with these forms is that you can tab through them and you can do data entry. So edit forms should be set up in a way that data entry is very easy for you to access. If it doesn't feel easy, that's something to share with your SAM admin, and they can work with our team or use the system itself to kind of reconfigure that form to make it easier for you to do your data entry. It can be reconfigured. So consider that, like if you're tabbing through and it doesn't tab easily, or the data that you're entering is way at the bottom or somewhere in between, or you're overlooking a lot of fields, know that these forms can be configured and you can provide that kind of feedback to your SAM admin to help your team improve the system for your for everybody. Let's see. So other types of forms, we would call these multi-records. So this is on about a donor and the donations that they've got, but this is a term that we kind of throw out. Multi-record forms display multiple records. So not the main entity, but sub-records that come underneath that record, right? So our donor makes donations. That's what makes them a donor. And so we've got a record of each donation, right? It's fairly simple information, but just so that we're on the same page with our terms, right? So this would be a multi-record, and I can add one multi-record at a time, one donation at a time as they're made to the organization. Okay, so one donation. That is true for adding a home study or a background check or a document or other things in the system as well. So once we talk about forms, then we'll talk about documents. So again, forms, when I use that term to talk about SAM, I'm talking about how really your team, or even potentially families that you're working with or external people that you're working with that interact with your database, how they enter data into your system. A document is going to be a scanned or electronic copy of a document that you upload into SAM. So that can be done a lot and can be seen a lot with family information. You'll definitely upload documents on children as well. You may have birth parents with lots of document records. But a document, you'll see a link on every main entity type, a document link on the sidebar. And when you add a document to the system, there is a document upload field, which is going to be really familiar to you from all kinds of systems that we use, right? So it's just choosing a file and you upload that document. Once that document's been uploaded into SAM, you'll be able to retrieve the document if you have that access. So if you can actually upload documents, you can very likely pull down those documents as well. And so you can click and open, and the document will appear on the side in a new tab. Okay, so you can see them there. Documents can be uploaded through checklists and other forms as well. If you were on the checklist here, documents could be uploaded when it's a little gray folder, and you're going to be presented with a document upload field. Okay, and when you upload a document here, it will automatically be added to that document section. So that's done by default. So even if you, all the documents that have been uploaded here will also be visible to you in the document section. Okay. And I think that's what I want to say about documents. Checklists. So since we just left the checklist section, checklists are configured by your team. So SAM doesn't come with a standard set of checklist items for you to complete. Your SAM admin, very likely in coordination with your team, your program directors, and other folks on the team, have created a process in the database that your team kind of goes through. You may be responsible for some or all of those checklist items. The checklist for every main entity type is accessible from the cover page, from that records cover page, from the sidebar. And this is kind of an example of what one would look like. So we've talked about documents here. As things become complete, if you upload a document, the date will automatically be entered. If it's not a document upload field, you can use the check mark to enter the date that it was completed. You're certainly also welcome to click edit and change the date. So if you did it yesterday, right, you can make a modification to that date and save it. Okay, you can see the responsible worker here. When checklist items have a due date for you, which is configured by your team. So your team kind of decided, we want this to be done at some point past another date that's been entered in the system, right? So that makes sense. We have a due date for things. They're generally dependent on some other date entry. But when you are the responsible worker and it's up and coming, on your homepage, it'll show right here in my tasks. So I'm going to look at all, this person doesn't have any items, but because I'm kind of logged in as somebody other than myself. But if I added this person, edit, this, I think I'm Sally Social Worker is who I'm logged in as. And if I remove this date, it'll show up on my homepage as something that I needed to have done. Right? So this is what I need to have done. When you see these items on your homepage, you can go in and access the checklist or the main entity record cover page from either one of these two links. So I can click in and access that checklist here. And so I can find my name and say, oh, I actually did complete that item. Right? And you can see the date is filled. The other thing we'll talk about is templates. So generally, your SAM admin will also build templates for you, but so that you know what they are and where you can find them, templates are available from the sidebar link. They are prescribed communications that are coming out of SAM that should generally pull information that's been entered through forms on SAM into SAM. So a lot of times it'll be like, dear family name, and the family's name, it'll say dear Janisa and Michael, or dear Janisa and Michael Williams, depending on how that was set up. We'll tell you information about the case, maybe provide some dates, and it can be sent through email or it could be printed. Templates can go either way. So when you click on templates here, you have the option to print or email, and then you get a list of all of the different templates that are available in your system. If I look at this application has been approved, the template will say, dear family name, first names first, or first names only. but here it's presents their actual name, tells what program they're in, who their caseworker is, and then I can click email to get that sent. Okay, and then you can kind of follow the prompts along to send that email out. Reports are going to be get over here. Instead of looking at record by record, reports are going to be multiple records. Okay. So reports are found when you go to your home page in your report menu. So these are going to be the reports that your report menu is the reports that you access most frequently. Your report menu will potentially vary from other users of your SAM site. And it should be based on role. And again, like reports that you're responsible for pulling and describing to the team, they can certainly be set up to help you with getting data entry done, or checklists that are responsible for, that you're responsible for. So instead of looking at them through my task or each of your people in your caseload individually, you can look at them in a full, everybody on your caseload and what's upcoming in the next week or month, what hasn't been done, what documents are due but haven't been completed. Depends on what you want to find, but generally anything that gets entered into the system, you should be able to pull that out in a report. You can peruse other reports. So your SAM admin may have given you a default set of reports to kind of look at. They may or they may not have. It's up to the agency what they want to do. So if you don't have any reports, you are able to peruse the reports that are built in the system for different entity types that you have access to. So remember, all users may have different access levels to what information they can and cannot see. So there may be other reports built in your system that you don't have access to, and that's okay. Right, but the reports are they're shown alphabetically. They're shown alphabetically by the naming convention that your agency provided for those. So coming up, having the SAM admin come up with a reasonable naming structure would be very helpful for your agency, but you can kind of go in and check. So if we look at these reports, something that we're gonna kind of push forward just because we're on reports and talk about reports and a little bit of some of the things that you can do. So under options, it's always important to know how a report is configured. And this is the only way that you're going to really be able to tell is what are the tables on the report, and the default filters on here is what's going to be most important. This is what's going to help you understand if you've got two different links to two different reports, and are you talking apples to apples with another user, or is it apples and oranges? The default filter is going to say, oh, we're actually only looking at families who inquired in the last year, or families who have case stage equals inquiry. They could have different values on it because maybe families who inquired in the last year, some of them are actually past that inquiry stage, right? So that's not the same thing. So, being able to see that, this is what will tell you that information. Other things that I think are really important for an individual user to know on reports, family name or family all is the report title. The memo here, there's no memo here, but if there was of like who's using it, why are we using it, what is the purpose of this report, could be added to the memo. Being able to sort and filter directly on reports, I think, is really important. So you can click on every single column and you can do sort ascending or descending. You could filter out blank or entered values, or you could search very specifically by that field if you're looking for a specific value or some kind of subset of values, right? So if I sort ascending, right, we get all the empty, and then eventually we look at this, we'll see active adoption because that's the next one alphabetically, right? We could filter out entered values, and that eliminates all of those that have a case stage. And this is kind of an example of what we could do if we needed to correct the data entry in our caseload. This is a great way to like look at everything that's blank. We're getting a question is, can we sort by 2 columns simultaneously? You would do one and then the next, but yes, absolutely. So we get this is filter everything by blank. And then maybe another way to filter, I could click here and search by Tennessee, or I can actually just click Tennessee and filter by that value. So these are all the families in Tennessee that do not have any entry for a case stage. Another thing you can do, if the report is set up as such, you can actually edit. So if you see this little edit link here, we can click and I can change it. I can give them that record of value. And now my report is empty because I have no empty case stage families in Tennessee. I can see all of my search criteria by clicking search. So this will display is empty and equals, even though that says application, it probably shouldn't. It probably should say that, but it really is empty, and it equals the state region is Tennessee. And maybe this is, I don't know why that shows like that, actually, to be honest. That seems a little funny. If I go back to filter out entered values, we're looking again at case stage is empty. Search. This is just the default, so it wants to pull there. Payment type and by the date. Sure. Yeah. So, okay. So Kimberly is asking another question, and I really thank you for asking questions. I love questions. I'm going to look at a report based around AR fees. Okay. So she's asking, can we look at a specific fee type and a specific date? Absolutely. So we might want to look at application fee. I'm going to filter by that fee type, and my receive date, and I'm going to search by field. So we can look at this. And here we could do all date fields are really interesting with their operators. We could say in the current week, current year, in a specific year. In this case, I'm going to do like 2017 because my sample data can be real old. It's hard to keep it up to date. And there's actually just one application fee that was received in 2017. Okay, so you can have multiple criteria. Search, just clicking search by itself will allow you to add even more. So we might say receive date in specific year of 2018 as well. So as in 2018 or 2019. If I do it by results must match all filters, I'm probably going to get nothing because you can't have received the date in 2017 and 2018. But if I change this to any or some and say I definitely want to talk about application fee, but I also want it to be in 2017 or 2018, we're going to get different results. In this case, we didn't because my sample data is old. But let's go back to like 2016 and see if we get more there. Nope. 2015? It's real old. But here at this point, now I've got 2015 and 2017 application fees that are received, right? So I've got the 2 different dates there, but very little changed except for instead of saying and, I said or. If I go back to default, you can search, and you can search by any field from any of the tables that are pulled on this report. So one thing that as an administrator, when you're building reports for your team, sometimes there can be too many tables. However, sometimes there can be too few. So always having enough context to what folks are going to do with the report and being able to explain as users to your admins what's the purpose of a report, always the starting point, and that'll help them define what tables to be included. But I can look at any of these, so I could pull things not about the AR fee, but about the case. So all families that have case closed is not empty. Here, we don't even have any fees on that. So I could probably do case start date, something like that. Something else. Have a case stage is not empty, right? Something like that. will pull for us. Here's all the fees that have been applied for everybody who's got a case stage entered. So that's reports. One other thing that I think is somewhat underutilized in the system are report stats. So as users, I don't think that you'll be able to add report stats, but if there are components that you want to calculate, so Sam can help you find the totals, average, minimum, maximum, and percentages for some of these items. So we've got things divided by what case program, what type of fee, and then how much, what is the total fees that we've been received for that specific fee type. By country program, by specific program, by receive date. So different fees, amounts. And then, you know, in 2017, we've got literally, we can see that one fee, it just happened to be, but in 2014, my data is so old that we're kind of going back to the previous decade. Probably I should do some updating of that. But being able to see calculations through report stats, really, really helpful. I would start off with dates, really important milestone dates, and big categories that you use to talk about your programs and the clients that are in your programs as really good starting points for building report stats. Let's go back to here. The last thing, and because we've only got through the terms, but we kind of talked about everything in that, is auto actions. So what I want you to know about auto actions, you won't be able to set them up yourself, but is that auto actions help you automate your work. So automate the workflow that you're doing. So you can email, you can update information. So if you enter a date, it might update the case stage. If you update a date, it might send an email to your team or the family. So if there's any kind of automation, things that you're doing repeatedly, especially if there's a template to send emails to, you can use an auto action so that your team, the system can display that email to you, but you don't have to switch out of SAM and go into your email and send that email, or find the template and copy it in and then copy the name and whatever. You can still customize email communications and have them sent out, which this is going to get us right in and over to our settings. So a couple of settings that I want to talk to you about. Let's go page down. Just so you know where to access them. From the home page, there's a settings link. You can also click it from the top. It's going to take you to the same spot. Change your username or password. So at some point in the future, you may have to change your password, either the one that was provided for you as a temporary password, or every 6 months, your team may request that you update your SAM password. You will come in here and click reset password, enter your old password or the temporary password provided, and confirm and send the new one. So that can be done through settings. Other things that you can do here is change your time zone. So your agency may be in, have by default maybe located, or headquarters located in a certain time zone, but you may be in a different time zone. You can modify that. It should be set by default to whatever your organization is set to, but you can modify that if you need to. I think email settings are the things that users change most frequently. So if you want to send emails out of SAM or have your emails imported into SAM, you will do this here. So you can click to send your own emails. If your team is importing emails, you would also click there. You'll enter your email address, and then you will enter your username and password for your email address. So this is not your SAM password, but your email password. If your email password ever changes, you need to update it here as well. And it's really easy to get to. So as you know, you change it through your email provider, and then you'll come into SAM, click settings, change password. The other settings that I would recommend that you can do is changing your report menu. And so you can click an add report menu, add reports to your menu, and you'll get the full selection of the reports that you can access. It'll just be a long list, and you put check marks next to the ones that you like, the things that relate to your role and that you would find useful. Okay, you can press save, and then you can use the numbers on the side or the X's to eliminate or reorder those reports. Right, so I might put this as number 1. Now, every time that I'm on my home screen, it just didn't even go. Fresh. I need to go back, come home. There we go. Now my report is here at the top, the child, because that's the one I'm going to access most frequently. Okay. That's settings, forms and docs, settings, forms and docs. We talked about reports. We talked about, does anyone, if anybody is still on, have any questions that you want to hear about? Let me actually unmute everyone. Are there any questions that anybody has that kind of burning? Okay, awesome. Well, I don't think anybody's asking questions, and we'll let that person have privacy with their conversation. So that's what I've got for you today. Next time, we're probably jumping right back into administrator type functions. We'll talk about auto actions and how you build them and things to think about what is possible. So if you can join us September 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, we'll be right here again. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to follow up with us through support@inreachsolutions.com, or click the support link at the top of your screen. Look forward to talking to you later, and enjoy your day.